Being Latino, I was in a lot of quinceañeras. Quinceañeras are huge parties for girls who are turning 15. In our culture, we go crazy from the food, the drinks, the people there, the amount of people there. And I was asked to be a chambelán. A chambelán is someone who escorts this young lady to the room and shows her off and just showcases her on her special night. And in high school, I was invited to be a chambelán for one of my friends, and every Tuesday night we would practice this choreographed dance just to make the escort look amazing. And I came home one night and I was all alone at home because my parents were at church. My dad was working, and so I'm at home, and the first thing I do, because growing up I was afraid of the dark. I cannot be in the dark, especially when there was no one at home. So I turn on all the lights and I start watching TV, and I start hearing noises. And every noise I hear, I feel like I start imagining things like, or whatever. And I start hearing a bunch of noises and a bunch of bangs in my garage. And I get super scared, and I start thinking, I think someone's trying to break into my house, like they're in the garage trying to break into our home now. And I remember calling my dad real quick and telling him, hey, I think there's someone trying to break into my house. And he's like, well, go and check. And I'm like, nah, Dad, I can't do that. And so I spent the next couple of minutes deciding what I was gonna do. So I grabbed the rolling pin, grabbed the house phone. It was a landline at the time, kind of old. And I planned to run out the front door, because if they're in the garage, I can run out the front door, go to my neighbor's house, and ask her to help me out. And so that's what I did. I ran out the door, go to my neighbor's house, I bang, and I tell her the whole thing, and she's freaking out. She's like, call the cops. And I'm like, okay, call the police. They roll up four cars, and they come over and like, what's going on? I think there's someone in my house. You gotta go do something. And so they go in, they search the whole place, come out. They don't find anybody, and they come over and they ask me, are you sure there was something in your house? I'm positive. I'm afraid. I'm shaking. My dad just notified my mom. My mom told the whole church the pastor's on his way. I don't know why they sent the pastor. He's a little short guy. He don't want to do nothing. My dad's having to come home from work, and I'm like, dude, there was something in there. He's like, nope. Sorry, son. If anything comes up, feel free to call us. And I'm like, all right, cool. And before he leaves, he tells me, do you realize that your dogs were in the side yard? You think it could have been them making all the noise? And I stop, and I'm like, nah, it's not them. It's not, definitely somebody in my house. Well, guys, it turns out nobody was trying to break into my house. It was my dog just making a bunch of noise in the side yard, and I didn't know they were there. But I was afraid. And now I want to ask you, have you ever been this afraid, where you are shaking, you're trembling, you don't know what to do, you have to call the police, whatever, so you have to ask for help. I think it's normal for us to be afraid. And there's another story about a couple of homies who went on a cruise. They thought they were going on a nice, peaceful cruise, but they ended up facing one of the craziest storms they have ever faced. In fact, these guys are found in the Bible, and Mark, the author of this book, writes about the story of Jesus' disciples getting on a boat with him and traveling to the other side of the body of water. And this is what happens. Check this out. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side. This is what Jesus said. Hey, let's get on this boat and let's go on the other side of this body of water. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. Check this out. This is a really important detail. Jesus is sleeping on a cushion in the boat. The disciples woke him up and said to him, teacher, don't you care if we drown? These homies were facing one of the craziest storms they'd ever seen. Some of these guys were fishermen. They were out in bodies of water, so they knew what was up, but they never seen nothing like this, and they are afraid so much that they have to go to Jesus and wake him up and be like, yo, don't you care if we drown? They ask him, don't you care about us? He got up and rebuked the wind and said to the waves, quiet, be still. Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this, that even the wind and waves obey him? There are three things here that I like to point out that I think it's just super interesting about Jesus and in times that we're afraid. Number one, what we see here is that Jesus isn't afraid of what we're afraid of. Jesus is chilling on this boat as this storm is going on, and as the disciples are afraid, he's not, he's chilling. The second thing is that Although Jesus isn't afraid of what we're afraid of, he cares deeply about us, enough to do something. We see here that they ask, like, don't you care about us? And instead of just saying, yeah, of course I care, he does something, he shows them. And lastly, that I think is super cool, is that he has the power to calm. He has the power to calm the storm, meaning that Jesus has the power to do things that we can't. And so this story speaks a lot to me, because growing up being someone who's afraid of a lot of things, like my dog's trying to break into my house, learning this about Jesus has been so helpful. And I think as a Jesus follower and as a leader, this is something important to remember, that Jesus isn't afraid of what we're afraid of, but he does care deeply enough to show us his power over the things that sometimes freak us out. And so I want to challenge you this week. If there's something that you've been afraid of, if there's something that you are afraid of, to be reminded about these truths here, that Jesus cares about you deeply and has the power, right, over these things and these situations. And something that has been helpful to me as a leader is to admit when I'm afraid and to ask for help. So with that, I hope that's encouraging.